Cuando venga o cuando viene. Cuando pueda o cuando puedo. Cuando vaya o cuando voy. Cuando in Spanish sometimes goes with the subjunctive and sometimes it does not. So how do you know which one is which? The subjunctive in general can be pretty tricky, but especially when students try to learn it all at once. When you break it down into smaller parts, like in this video, I find it's a lot simpler. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how to get really good at one very specific use of the subjunctive, namely time markers like cuando. To help you be able to use what you learn here when you speak Spanish, I also put together a bonus lesson that you can grab at the link in the description. By the way, I make grammar videos like this one in English because I find it helps concepts stick a lot faster for intermediate students. And I imagine you're somewhere in that camp if you're watching this video. You'll find lots of other videos with learning tips that are all in kind of medium-paced Spanish on my channel if you're interested in that. All right, let's start with an example that is very common from everyday life. And that is, te llamo cuando llegue. Te llamo cuando llegue. I'll call you when I get there. That second verb, llegue, is in the subjunctive. Cuando llegue. Why is that? Well, if we look at it closely, we'll notice that we're talking about something that's in the future. Te llamo cuando llegue. I'll call you when I arrive. I'm not sure when that'll be. It's a moment in the future. Te llamo cuando llegue. Now, what would happen if we said, te llamo cuando llego? Te llamo cuando llego. The difference there is that it sounds like we're referring to something habitual. Te llamo cuando llego. Like I always call you when I arrive. Anytime I go on a trip and I get to the hotel, I always call you when I arrive. It's something habitual. On the other hand, the more common everyday situation is te llamo cuando llegue. I'll call you when I get there. And so that's really the critical rule that you need to understand about using cuando and the subjunctive. When you're referring to something that's going to happen in the future, you're going to use the subjunctive. Otherwise, you'll use the indicative. Let's look at some other examples to help this sink in, and then I'll show you a few other areas where you can apply this same rule in your Spanish. And then as we finish up, we're going to do some practice to help everything really become automatic for you. Cuando vayas al trabajo, habla con tu jefe. When you get to work, when you go to work, talk with your boss. So not cuando vas al trabajo, hablas con tu jefe. When you go to work, habitually you speak with your boss. Cuando vayas al trabajo, when you go to work later on, habla con tu jefe. So this is an imperative, a command. Speak with your boss. Cuando puedas, llámame. Cuando puedas, I don't know when you'll be able to, call me. Cuando puedas, llámame. Cuando terminen el proyecto, avísenme. When you finish the project, let me know. So I don't know when that's going to be, but let me know whenever you finish up. Cuando terminen, and not terminan. Cuando terminen el proyecto, avísenme. Let's check out an example that contrasts how you can use the subjunctive and the indicative in a very similar sentence. Cuando salga el sol, vamos a la playa. When the sun comes out, we will go to the beach. We're going to the beach. Cuando salga el sol, so when the sun comes out later on, I'm not sure when, we're going to go to the beach. Cuando salga el sol. On the other hand, we could also say, cuando sale el sol, vamos a la playa. When the sun comes out, usually, we go to the beach. Cuando sale el sol, siempre vamos a la playa. So whenever the sun comes out, we usually or always go to the beach. So remember, when we use the word cuando, the verb needs to be in the subjunctive when we're talking about something in the future. And if you're talking about something more habitual, an everyday occurrence, a regular thing, you're going to use the indicative mood. But the great thing is this is not only for cuando. You can apply this to many other time markers, really any other time marker that could be referring to the future. Things like tan pronto como, apenas, mientras, hasta que, antes de que, una vez que. Let's look at some examples with these expressions, starting with as soon as, en cuanto. Te llamo en cuanto llegue. I'll call you as soon as I arrive. Te llamo en cuanto llegue. That llegar happens in the future. Te llamo en cuanto llegue. Siempre te llamo en cuanto llego. I always call you as soon as I arrive. Like when I get to the hotel, every time I take a trip, I call you. Siempre te llamo en cuanto llego. I always call you as soon as I arrive. Apenas llegue a la oficina, me voy a preparar un café. As soon as I get to the office, I'm going to make myself a coffee. Apenas llegue. As soon as I get there, as soon as I arrive. Apenas llegue a la oficina, me voy a preparar un café. On the other hand, we can have apenas llego a la oficina, me preparo un café. Apenas llego, apenas llegue. So that second example is habitual. As soon as I get to the office each day, implied here, I always make myself a cup of coffee. With until, hasta que, the same thing can happen. Vamos a esperar hasta que llegue su vuelo. We're going to wait until their flight arrives. That arrival is happening in the future. Vamos a esperar hasta que llegue su vuelo. But if we're talking about something in the past, we would say, esperamos hasta que llegó su vuelo. And we can do the same thing with while. Mientras escuches las noticias en español, apunta palabras nuevas. While you are listening to the news in Spanish, implied later on, write down words. So that second part is an imperative, an instruction. Write down new words when you are listening to the news in Spanish later on. Apunta palabras nuevas mientras escuches las noticias en español. On the other hand, we can also use the indicative if we're talking about something habitual. Mientras escuchas las noticias en español, apuntas palabras nuevas. So while you listen to the news in Spanish, you write down new words. So that's just a description of your habit. The next one is before, antes de que. And it's important to note that this one always goes with the subjunctive, because if it is before, then the thing that is next has to be something in the future, which means we use the subjunctive. Antes de que se me olvide, before I forget, olvidar being the future action. Antes de que se me olvide, déjame decirte una cosa. Before I forget, let me tell you something. With once, una vez que, we can use both the indicative or the subjunctive. Una vez que él lo vea, lo entenderá. Once he sees it, he will understand it. If we're talking about in the past, though, we can use the indicative. Una vez que lo vio, lo entendió. All right, let's do some practice. And what you're going to do is use the context clues in the sentence that you see on screen to figure out if you need to use the indicative or the subjunctive for each of the following sentences. So, cada día cuando termine o termino el trabajo, voy al gimnasio. And the answer is termino because I'm referring to something habitual. Every day when I finish work, I go to the gym. Te llamo cuando llego o llegue a casa esta noche. And the answer is llegue because we're talking about something in the future. Tonight. Te llamo cuando llegue a casa esta noche. No sé cuándo será, pero no me voy hasta que tengo o tenga todo listo. And the answer is tenga because I'm referring to something in the future. Until I have everything ready. Hasta que tenga todo listo. Tan pronto como veo o vea un problema, quiero resolverlo. And the answer is veo. Tan pronto como veo un problema, quiero resolverlo. The reason this is veo and not vea, it's because I'm describing a character trait of mine. Something habitual, something specific to me. As soon as I see a problem, I want to solve it. Tan pronto como veo un problema, quiero resolverlo. All right, last question. Hazlo antes de que es o sea tarde. Hazlo antes de que sea tarde. Sea tarde because, again, we're talking about something in the future. So now you know how to use one of the most common and practical everyday uses of the subjunctive. If you want to keep practicing it and get better at it and make it automatic so that you don't have to think about it when you're having conversations, grab the free PDF bonus lesson below. And if you want to master another tricky part of Spanish grammar, watch this video next.